Welcome back. Today we'll be making this simple top with front design. I'll be using this cashmere material to make this outfit, and this accessory is what we'll use for the front design. So first and foremost, we'll be drafting the pattern for this top on a pattern paper. I have marked out the starting line, so I will mark out my chest line, which is usually bust point divided by 6 plus 2, or your armhole circumference divided by 2. Then I am going to mark my waistline and the top length. Then I will mark a straight line on this point and label the lines. On the shoulder line, I'm going to measure my shoulder to shoulder measurements divided by 2. Mine is 8 inches. Then I will mark the neck width of 3.5 inches. On the shoulder to shoulder measurement, I'm going to go down by 1 inch, and I'm going to connect that to my neck width, and that is going to serve as my shoulder slope. Then I'll connect that shoulder slope directly to the chest line. I'll get the midpoint of that line that I just drew and go in by half an inch at that midpoint. Then on my chest line, I'm going to mark my bust circumference divided by 4, and I'm going to connect that to the half inches at the midpoint up to the shoulder slope, and that has formed our armhole curves. Then I'll go down to my waistline and mark my waist circumference divided by 4. On my top length, I'll mark my hip circumference divided by 4 as well. Then I'll connect my bust points to my waistline and my hip line, and our basic blouse block is ready. For the neck depth, since the front design has a wrap effect, I won't be marking neck depth for the front, but for the back, I'm going to be marking 1.5 inches. You can use 1 inch if you like, but it should not be more than 1.5 inches. Mind you, this pattern is what we'll be using to cut both front and back panels. Then I'll add half an inch allowance on the shoulder for joining both the front and the back panel together. Then I'll add hemi allowance of 1 inch to the top length as well. At the side of the pattern, I'll go up by 1 inch and curve it to the center, that is at the top length line. This is so that the top will have a form of shape there, and of course that will take effect on the hemi allowance as well. The only place I didn't add allowance to is the side. I'll be adding it on the fabric. Then I'll go ahead and cut out the pattern, and that is our basic blouse block. I'll use it to cut the back panel. I'll fold the fabric into 2, place the pattern paper on it, and add 1 inch sewing allowance. Then I'll cut it out. Mind you, the cashmere fabric is stretchy, so there's no need for zipper allowance. And since we are having a wrap effect at the front, we do not need a zipper allowance. And that, my friends, is the back panel. For the front panel, I'll open the pattern paper up, and I'm going to draw a straight line at the center. On the waistline at one of the sides, I'm going to go up by 2 inches and go down by 2 inches. That makes a total of 4 inches. From that center line, I'm going to go to the other side by 3 or 3.5 inches. Then I'm going to connect that to the 2 inches I came down with on the waistline. Then I'll go to my neck width on the other side of the front panel and connect it down to the 2 inches I came up with on the waistline. Like, do you get? If you don't understand, kindly look at what I'm doing very well. So the parts I'm shading are the parts that we are going to cut off. So on the other side of the side front, I'll come up from the full length by 1.5 inches and connect it to the 3 inches, the other 3 inches. Do you understand? Please kindly watch what I'm doing if you don't understand my explanation. Then I'll go ahead and cut off all the shaded parts. This pattern is what I'll use to cut out my front panel, and I'm going to cut out 2 pieces. I'll fold the fabric into 2, place the pattern paper on it, and cut it out. Remember to add sewing allowances to the sides and hemi allowances to the other sides we just cut out. So this is what we have at the end of the day. I've gone ahead to hem the neckline for both the front and the back panel. So the next thing is to place the 2 pieces of the front panel on each other like so. The side you want your front design to be will determine the piece that will be on top. Align it properly and pin it if necessary. After that, I'll pick my accessory and fix my fabric into it like so. I'll place it on the other piece, pin it down, take it to my sewing machine to stitch it down on the seam allowance on both sides. After that, I will join the shoulders of the front and back panel and cut my sleeve, which by the way, I have a tutorial on how to cut a basic sleeve on the channel. The link will be in the description box. Then I'll fix the sleeve, join the outfit by the sides and hem it, and voila! This is what we have. Thank you so much for watching this tutorial. I'll see you in the next one.